Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Test Automation 101, Android Mobile App Testing with Ranorex Studio. I'm John Reynolds, Product Manager at Ranorex, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. With me is Timothy McDaniel, Ranorex Pre-Sales Engineer, and he will be handling the demonstration portion of our webinar today. Before we do get started, I do have a few housekeeping items. Throughout the webinar, our team will be answering your questions through the Q&A panel. It is usually located in the upper right corner of the GoToWebinar window, and this webinar is being recorded so that you can watch it again later or share it with others on your team. You will receive a link to watch the recording within 48 hours after this session ends. So now I will turn the presentation over to Timothy, who will go over the agenda.
Thank you, John. Today's agenda is going to be preparing your mobile device, how to set it up and everything. You've got to connect and register the mobile device with the Ranorex Studio, how to go about that, instrumenting and deploying your mobile application under test, creating your test solution using the Rocket Start Solution Wizard, an overview of the Ranorex Studio working environment, an intro to create a mobile test, applying an easy-to-learn two-step process, explanation of the concepts of actions and repository items and their correlation, and introduction to how the validation works, how it looks like if it fails, and run a mobile test and interpret the test report, and other numerous valuable tips and tricks for mobile testing along the way. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So when you first open up Ranorex Studio, you're introduced with our primary screen here that kind of gives you information as far as relating to UI testing. There's lots of news information here. Some of it's specific to Ranorex, and some of it is just, basically implementing things in general, like CI testing, and so all sorts of UI testing articles, things that are related to that. There's some getting started videos. There are some, we advertise our webinars on here as well. We notify you whether there's any updates. And of course, you have recent solutions that you might have been working on. And we also have some sample solutions down here. And up here, you can basically start a new solution either via the wizard or a blank solution. When it comes to setting up and getting ready to do something with the mobile testing, we will definitely be using this wizard today. So the first thing that we are going to do is click on the new solution via wizard, state that we are going to run a mobile test. We're going to call this test Android Dropbox, and we will continue. And then it's asking, well, what kind of test are we going to do? We're going to do an iOS app, an Android app, web test on iOS, or web test on Android. We're doing Android, so we're going to click on that one and say continue. Afterwards, it's telling you what is required, some prerequisites, and the prerequisites are slightly different between, for iOS versus Android. For example, on the iOS, you need to have iTunes installed, and there's some other things that you need. So do pay attention to this screen for prerequisites, depending on which type of testing you are conducting. This one states that you need the Java runtime engine. You need to connect via USB cable, your APK file, and your compatible mobile Android device. You can also use in our instance, and for today's webinar, we're going to be using an emulator. So we're going to simulate some of this, and I will show you that. Almost there. And it says if you get stuck, go to the user's guide. So we're going to say finish. Okay, so what we need to do first is we'll you've got first steps here for doing that one. But what we need to do is we need to establish an endpoint. So we're going to come up here to the endpoints, view endpoints. Right here we have no endpoints added. So we need to add an endpoints, which we're going to do. If you look here, you could say select the endpoint type Android, prepare the Android device, and select the Android device. Fortunately, it kind of was doing a search and it saw that I have an emulator running. So we're going to go ahead and add this endpoint, the Android, and it's completing the setup. So complete setup, and it shows it's connected. Now for running tests against this, we do need to make this the automation root. So you click on this little right button here and we set this as the automation root. And another thing too is if this is your first time doing this, we do need to make sure that let's run the Instrumentation Wizard here. And we're going to instrument a mobile device. Let's go ahead and do that. Click the Android. This interface, if you're on a earlier version before 10.0, it looks a little bit different, but for the latest version, they have refreshed the Instrumentation Wizard as it pertains to instrumenting browsers and instrumenting mobile devices. So we'll say next here. It's checking prerequisites, auto-detecting the device. We can go ahead and say next and choose from our existing device here. Or you could add a new one if you wanted to. And the first thing I'm going to do with this device is I'm going to make sure that I am running. I mean, of course, especially if this is your first time, you need to have the Ranorex service on there. And then, of course, if you intend on doing any web testing, you need to have that as well. And so we're going to go ahead and update these just to make sure that they have the latest. We'll say finish. And the operation was successful, and we can finish there. And of course, this thing that you do, you see this error here. Let me get the emulator over here. Let me see if we can go to home. There we go. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you do want to make sure that the Ranorex service is running. If it's not connected properly, it's an emulator, but it's kind of thinks that something's going on here. All right, so you do want to make sure this is running. We can refresh this over here, and it shows it's connected. So you do want to make sure the service. That's one of the things that that happens to me quite frequently is I forget to turn, to make sure the service is running and everything, and so then I always get this little error thing over there. But usually if the service is running, then that should really help. You'll notice here it kind of set us up here. It created a test case for us with a recording, and this is where we will be recording our particular test today. Sorry. Okay, before we get started with that recording, we need to go ahead and go to this Instrumentation Wizard one more time. And we go over back to Instrument a Mobile Device and click on Android again. And click on Next. Yes, choose Existing Emulator. Okay, so everything's picked up here, and we don't really need to update the service. That was our tab the last time. Now we have a choice between mobile app testing, mobile web testing, but what we need to do is we need to instrument the APK file. You cannot just copy an APK file over and start doing tests on it and things like that. It doesn't work. You cannot instrument any applications or any APK files that are from the Google Play Store, but you can instrument APKs from other sources. Maybe like whichever company, if you have a particular application that your company is using, then of course that's the APK file that you would need to instrument, and that is a prerequisite before we can actually begin recording. This instrumentation enables the Ranorex to be able to to see the elements and the things that are needed when you do those recordings. Click the Browse button over here. We are going to go to Documents and go to this folder where I have the Dropbox APK file that needs to be instrumented. There's options here. This is something especially new with this new wizard, starting at version 10. You can manually configure the parameters. Sometimes that's necessary for certain things. Certain companies might have things that need to be customized in here. So you have some instrumentation options, you have some Android manifest add-ons and signing the APK and things of that nature. So we don't really need any of these, and so we're going to basically just do auto detect, and we're going to then run next and let this thing instrument. Once it's instrumented, it will be automatically added to our Android device. So here it's starting the instrumentation. Okay, so let's see, it's continuing on with its instrumenting. We'll see some percentages. You'll see it doing a bunch of stuff. Going through compiling it and decompiling it rather. And basically you got to give it a few moments to let it finish doing all the necessary things that it's doing behind the scenes. This shouldn't take too long. Okay, and it looks like it's almost done. Okay, and the operation was successful. This can sometimes take about 5 minutes or so, depending on the size of the application. So just be aware that sometimes it's not, as fast in doing so as far as instrumenting and then getting it copied over and doing all of those operations. So here we can click Finish, and if we look on the application itself on the phone, and we go down here, where is it? There you go. We've got Dropbox is listed here as one of our applications, and it is instrumented, and we're ready to record our test against it. We click on the record button here, and mind you here, just if you're not familiar with the Ranorex Studio, here of course you have all your files that's related to this. These are the different recording modules for the module browser. If you break these down or create multiple types of tests and everything, then you can organize them here, and of course organize your files here, and then our repository items will be identified in here, and the different actions that we're taking are going to be in this actions table up here. Under the actions table, you can see there's things like touch and swipe gesture, mobile key press, and a lot of these, because we're doing this specifically for mobile, it doesn't include things like your keyboard, key sequence. Those things do appear here when you are doing desktop or browser testing, but not as it relates to mobile app testing. Let's click the record button, and it says okay, choose the device. We have our device here, this emulator, and we are recording this Dropbox. And it says, okay, do you want to restart the application? I guess so this time we can do that. Go ahead and create. And when you do so, it begins to launch, and it launches Spy, because when it comes to creating mobile tests, these application tests and everything, Spy is how you're going to pretty much build this test out. If we come down here and we look, it already shows here that it's showing us sort of a little scenario of what we see on the screen here. Where's my emulator here? Alright, so it kind of is seeing what we see here on the screen. And what we need to do is we need to start building out our application and kind of think, okay, well, what are we going to do? What do we need to do? Well, first of all, we need to log in, right? We could log in with Apple, or I guess sign in with Google or something like that, but we're going to click this little sign on button here, and see, I can zoom in on here too. Using my mouse, I can kind of move around this screen. I'm going to go ahead and say sign in, and when I click sign in, you'll notice here that it shows the path of where it found that sign in. We can even see on the path editor where it got to it as well. But this is the item that we need, and there's different ways to get this into the repository so that we can use it. So right here, of course, our first command, we'll move this off to the side of the screen for a second so you can see. We've got this run mobile app, and that's what it's doing. So it's launching the application. And we've got this repository item for signing in. There's one way to do it. Let me show you the first way. First way to do it is right-click on it and say Add to Repository. So I'm going to click on Add to Repository, and it's there. And then I can take this sign in and drag it up here and say touch. So now we've got that sign in. We still need to continue our recording, so let's take a look what has to happen. Let me see right here. So to get to the next screen on this emulator, and of course I could sign in. I could click this one and then wait till the next screen appears so that I can see what's on the next screen. I can also right click on this little text here and say touch it. And when I did that, oops, I made it too big here, you can see that reflected on here, and it took me to this sign in screen. So again, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. So after the refresh, we come down here and we see that now this matches pretty much what was on the emulator screen over here. And so what we want to do is go ahead and see if we can click on this particular field and see where this stands in the element tree. And let's see, let's choose this text option up here. And again, now last time we just did a right click and we said add to repository. This time let's go ahead and take this item and just drag it over to here. Let's see if we can, let me try that again. Gotta get to where I can see it, I guess. There, see, now I could drop it down here to the repository, or I could basically, and then of course I'd have to pull it back up, right? Or I can come right here to the actions table. So if it's something I'm just trying to put into the repository and I'll deal with it later, maybe I could do that. Otherwise, it makes sense just to go ahead and say, okay, I need to touch that field. And not only do I need to touch that field, I need to also set a value for it. Oops, set a value, text. And then I can put in here the username or the email address for the Ranorex for the Dropbox. And of course, to make my life easier, actually this is a duplicate here. Let me move that one out. And if we look at this here, I made it easy for myself, so I'm just going to copy and paste here into the value field for the username. Oops, text. And we've got this one. And so now we've got three different things going on where we've got the sign in, we've clicked on the email field, and then we're going to set a value into that email field. So after the refresh, we come down here and we see that now this matches pretty much what was on the emulator screen over here. And so what we want to do is go ahead and see if we can click on this particular field and see where this stands in the element tree. And let's see, let's choose this text option up here. And again, now last time we just did a right click and we said add to repository. This time let's go ahead and take this item and just drag it over to here. Let's see if we can, let me try that again. Gotta get to where I can see it, I guess. There, see, now I could drop it down here to the repository, or I could basically, and then of course I'd have to pull it back up, right? Or I can come right here to the actions table. So if it's something I'm just trying to put into the repository and I'll deal with it later, maybe I could do that. Otherwise, it makes sense just to go ahead and say, okay, I need to touch that field. And not only do I need to touch that field, I need to also set a value for it. Oops, set a value, text. And then I can put in here the username or the email address for the Ranorex for the Dropbox. And of course, to make my life easier, actually this is a duplicate here. Let me move that one out. And if we look at this here, I made it easy for myself, so I'm just going to copy and paste here into the value field for the username. Oops, text. And we've got this one. And so now we've got three different things going on where we've got the sign in, we've clicked on the email field, and then we're going to set a value into that email field. I'm going to go back to the spy tool again, and let's pull up the emulator because that way we can kind of see where we're at. Let's go back up the ladder a bit. Do a refresh here. There you go. And so now we can kind of see where the password field is, and we will click into the password field. And it took us to this text field. And so let's see if that's the better one. Let's see. Text field. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and then add this to the repository. And we'll go and take and drag this up. Same sort of thing, touch. Go ahead and say set value, text. Go back to this to copy this password. Especially I don't want to have to type that in. And we'll say, okay, we're sort of good to go. And now, at this point, what we could do is go ahead and run a test, a current test, and just see if this logs us in. We're not running the entire test, but just the sequence. So we're running this recording. Now, if you wanted to run the entire test, you could run from here the entire test suite. That would run the entire thing. It's essentially running everything because right now it's broken into just one recording. The nice thing with Ranorex is I could say that I want to run everything, or I could say, okay, I want to run from here, or run from here, or just, basically select what I want to run. If I wanted to run 3 items, I could do that, run those selected items. But we're going to go ahead for this test run. So far, we will run and see if this works and if it logs us in. So let's go ahead and run it. And I'm going to pull up the emulator to make sure we see what's going on. It's actually restarting. Kind of clicking, it should click sign in, that little sign in button. It did. typing in the email, and typing in the password. And it says that it was successful, which means that's good to go. It didn't go in any further. It didn't sign in because we still got to do that sign in button here too. So let's go back to Ranorex again. Or I'm sorry, not just Ranorex, but to Ranorex Spy. And let's see if we can click on out of here. Actually, it might be a good idea to refresh. There you go. Sometimes a refresh will give you, a new fresh look at, especially if you've been navigating in other screens. So what we want to do is we want to click this sign in button. So there's the button, sign in. Add that to the repository. Let's see if we get this one. So element is root. Let me see, I don't know why it's not bringing there. So I think what we're going to do is let's do it. This one's perfect for, I think, dragging over. Perfect. And then what we're going to do is come up here and say click or touch. Another thing too, what you can do is rename these things to make these a little bit more, if you look at this, this is kind of hard to decipher. So we could say, we could change this to say Dropbox sign in. Type in email address. See, well, we can call this email address login. Go down here to password login. Now you notice it's changing it just here for our own organizational purposes. It's not affecting the path, the Ranorex path that is being used. And now we know this is, you had your Dropbox sign in, but I guess you could call this your even login after credentials, right? So we kind of keep track of these buttons and what they are. So one more thing I can do, let's go ahead and I can go to the properties of this and I can even mask this password. So, you could mask either, but I'm just going to mask the password as well. And everything else is good. So let's go ahead and try running this recording one more time and seeing if we can log in to Dropbox. So let's pull this up. Let it do its thing. So it's starting to run the mobile app. It's launching it. Clicking to the sign in, typing in the username, typing in the password, and it's signing in to Dropbox. Takes a little moment here. So the recording here is showing, hey, it's successful. It did what we said for it to do. And then from there we can continue. So that's great. It logged us in, and now it's kind of prompting us with some other things that we could sit there and say, like, no thanks. And I think if we're going to run this test each time, well, that's going to come up each time, but we could even add some clicks to make sure that we say no thanks and stuff like that so it doesn't come up again. Okay, we'll click not now to this one. Now this one I think is a Google action here. It's not a Dropbox action. So we'll get this out of the way by clicking this no not now. But because that's not instrumented, your Ranorex, when you're running the UI testing, it would not be able to really see that prompt there. So let's go ahead and say that we want to skip this particular item. I'm going to go over here to back to Spy, and we're going to find that button right here, skip, and we're going to click on it. It's right here. We can take this particular item and we'll go back to the recording, go back here. Drag it to the repository. And we will say that we want to click on this particular button. So touch the skip button. And from there, we can actually, if we want to, well, we'll go ahead and test that out further later. But after that, we will go into, no, not that one. Let's go into the Ranorex Spy again. We will touch this one. And it brings up another screen. So they've got like all kinds of things to do, don't they? Before they let you get to your main screen. Let's go ahead and do this one more time. We need to refresh this. See if we can. And what we want to do is just hit this back arrow up here. So let's go ahead and hit this particular button. Button back. And add it to the repository. Let's go ahead and see if that did that. Not sure it added it or not. So let's try it one more time. There. I think that first time just didn't catch. Let's go ahead and click this, drag this one up. We want to touch that one again. Go back over to our over here and bring this up as well. And we're going to tap that too. And finally, we're at the home screen where we can actually do something. So what we're going to do now is we are going to upload a picture and then we're going to delete it. And I will show you kind of what we're going to do. Let's take a quick look. We're going to come here, upload a picture. Click on this one here, upload this picture of this beach. Let it upload. And of course, right here, if you look at it, it's nice. Well, it's a picture of a bridge over Surf City in North Carolina. So what we're going to do is go ahead at this point. We're going to upload it, we're going to validate it, and then we're going to delete it. Delete, like that, and that's going to be our next sequence of events. So let me go over here to this particular, go to the Ranorex Spy, and let's do a quick refresh. And what we want now is this little plus button. So we're going to grab the plus button, or click on that plus button, create files. Add it to the repository. Let me confirm that it did this. Sometimes it's acting a little quirky, so if it doesn't do it that way, then just click over here, create files. Drag this up and say touch. Now, one little good tip too that you might do is, because if you see it kind of can get confusing. Where am I now? I got tons of touches, and I can see where it links here, but it does get a little bit unwieldy, so to speak. One thing I can do afterwards is I can break these into different recording modules in order to make sure it's, you know, where I can use them for reuse and things like that. But I can also just kind of make little annotations in here and say, okay, I want a separator. You know, I've got, first of all, open Dropbox, for example, right? And I can take that open Dropbox and let's see, we can take this and drag it way up to the top. So open Dropbox is there, and then I've got my just initial sign in. So I can say add new separator there and say okay, initial sign in. You don't have to keep everything together if you don't want to. You can. There you go. And now we know we've got another login, and this one is called log in with credentials. Now we can go and put that one up there. We got these touches here, the password, touch again, sign in. So after that, now we're at the home screen. So we'll say, do another separator. Well, we're not the login screen. What are we? We've got this skipped for, you know, some preliminary stuff. I guess you could call this preliminary screens. Preliminary screens. Or we say dialogue screens, because it's kind of asking you to do a number of things and you're trying to get past that. And so now you're finally you're actually getting to your home button. We'll call this home screen. We can even say Dropbox home screen, right? Just make it more descriptive. And that needs to go down at the bottom. So if you see there, we've kind of got it broken down, and now it looks like, okay, I know what these 3 steps do. I know what those 3 steps down, those things do, and we've got some organization down here, some of the way we've named things. Finally, what we're going to do, let's go back into SPY. Ranorex SPY is over here. We've got this plus icon. Actually, that last one goes down there, right? There you go, below there. That was where we touched this one, and now we're going to make that happen over here, and we are going to come over here and touch tap that. We can't see what's going on because I got to bring the emulator up. There you go, and when we brought that up, boom, another screen comes up. So let's go ahead and refresh this. Maybe we can resize this a little bit there too. Okay, and let's see, where is that? Is it form none? Ah, yeah, see, this form none appeared down below here. And this is where we see these options. So what we want to do is click on the upload photos or videos. And we want to go ahead and add this to the repository. Let's see if it did it. I might have to like restart SPY or something because it's not working in that way, but that's fine. Oops, resizing this again. Let's go to, drag it over here then. And then we can go ahead and drag this up, touch this one, and that one is ready to go. Let's go back to this one, right click over here, say touch. And now it brought up this screen where we are going to select the picture. So again, we want to go back to the element browser, maybe do a refresh. You can see it here, so we're going to basically select this element here. And we're going to, well, since the normal means, I think it's automatically trying to maximize when it hits the corner of my screen. But we're going to go ahead and drag this over into here. And we're going to drag this up, and we're going to say touch. After we do that, we've got one more action to perform. So what we're going to do is we're first going to go ahead and right click and touch tap on this screen just so that it shows the check mark here, and as a result, if we look at the emulator, it shows, you know, when you do that, it presents the upload button. So the next thing we need to do is go ahead and track on that. That's down a little bit here. Actually, I think it's this one, container relative. Yep, upload. If we click on this upload, it's right here. We need to go ahead and drag this over to here and bring it up to here as well. So we'll say to touch, and that's going to upload the picture. So what we can do actually is go ahead and test it, and we'll run it just from this particular location. So we'll say, okay, let's go ahead and remove this one. And we're kind of staging it where we want it to be right now. And we'll go ahead and say run from here and see what it does. So let's go ahead and do this. It's going ahead and starting to run it. Okay, upload. Selecting that one and clicking the upload button, showing that it's successful, and of course Dropbox is now loading it and it's on the screen. So we're good to go. Now we're on the, we could actually start a new category over here under our recording, and we could say, okay, we'll say log message. Where's the log message go to? Oops, not log message. Run mobile app. Nope, there it is. I need to get rid of that one. I meant to say to add another separator, and this separator will say, after upload. And we'll drag this one back down here. After upload. And now from here we can go ahead and do something like a validation or something. So how do we do a validation? Well, first of all, what we want to do is we want to go back to the Ranorex screen. Where are we at now? Ranorex. And bring up also the emulator. And I think what we want to do is do a refresh again to kind of see where we're at here. There we go. And we see the different components that it can see on the screen. Let me see if we can get more into it. Content, frame, Android element. There we go. That's what I'm trying to get into, these little areas. Sometimes if it's highlighting that, you got to make sure, because sometimes there's little things that where it's showing the whole thing and you're trying to find an individual element. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to concentrate on this right here. So I want to find that Surf City, and I want to bring that Surf City into my repository. This time what I want to do is I'm going to validate. I want to say, okay, I want to validate that the attribute equals your value. Let me see. Choose that its attribute equals Surf City. We want to say that it is visible. We could say that we want to choose that is visible equals true, Surf City. And that way we'll perform a validation on that. Afterwards, we want to go ahead and delete it. So in order to do that, we'll track on this particular button here. So we need to kind of go back up, so we can kind of go back up out of there. Track this particular picture here. Oops. Yeah, I tell you, if I drag it too close to the corner of the screen, it jumps like that. Drag it over here. And go ahead and click up here and say we want to touch that. So if we go back into the spy tool again, let's see, and we press it, it's going to give you a new screen. And let's see where that particular frame exists. Oh, that's not the one we wanted. Nope. Let me do this refresh one more time. there it is. Should have just went to the top. So when you come over here, there's a delete button down here that we want to hit. So we're going to say delete. And we're going to take this delete button, take it to our repository. There it is. And come up here to delete it, touch it. However, when you do that, it's automatically going to confirm whether or not are you sure you want to delete. Let's go back into the mobile app. See, are you sure you want to delete? So now we need to go ahead and refresh this again to find that one. There you go. Are you sure you want to delete? So we're going to click on this one. And there's two buttons here, button 1 or button 2, if you wanted to cancel or if you wanted to delete, and we definitely want to delete. So we'll take this button and bring it over here as well. Maybe rename this one for sure right now, say confirm delete, just to make it clear. And bring that one up and touch. So at that point, that's going to delete the item. So what we'll do is bring up this one, bring up the Ranorex Spy, and from there, go ahead and tap it, and it's deleted. So at this point, especially if we want to be able to test the whole login capabilities and everything, we're going to have to do one more thing. And that will be to go to the account. So we have to go to the account, and we have to come down here and sign out of Dropbox. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and do those, accomplish those two things. And that means that we need to do a refresh here. Kind of take a look at what the screen is showing. All right, and we want to click on that particular one, the account, and we're going to take this and drag and drop it. And drag this up to here and say touch. We can call this one account tab. And go back over to this one and go ahead and press it, touch tap, takes us to that one, and then we're going to refresh this right here. And zoom in on, oops, we kind of zoomed in on the wrong one. Let's see, there's sign out of Dropbox. Go ahead and move this over to here, and we drag this back up. We can say confirm sign out or sign out, because there's probably going to be another confirmation there. Sign out, touch, and let's see, after we've signed out of Dropbox, let's go ahead and touch that one more time. Come back to the mobile, and again we've got, like I said, are you sure? So we'll say yes. Let's see, form none. Are you sure? Sign out. So we want to sign out. We're going to take this new button and we will bring that into the repository. Let me see, that did that. One sign out. There, confirm delete. Oh, okay. So that button, I think, is sort of the same button as before, right? As the delete. But we'll say touch. That should sign us out. Okay, and we will sit there and go, yep, touch it. And let's see what the mobile phone's doing. And it signed us out here. So that pretty much concludes the creation of this test. So all we have to do now is really run this test and see if it works. So now let's go ahead and run this. This time, instead of running the recording, we are going to run the entire test, which we could do from here as well. So we'll say run, and it's going to compile it. We're going to bring this, make sure it's up at the forefront here. I think what I'll do is bring it here a little bit to the middle so we can make sure that we can see where this little running little bar at the bottom isn't covering anything. It's logging in. Signing in, this sometimes takes a little bit. Right now it shows we have a duration of a minute for it to be able to log in. You could, if you had something that took longer, you could add a delay, or you could add a wait for maybe wait until you see a certain screen to proceed or something like that. But with 1 minute, I think we have adequate time for it to log in. There you go, it's logged in. Skipping some of these little questions and prompts that Dropbox is trying to give you. Uploading or selecting the photo and then uploading. Now it's going to validate. And validated here. And it's going to prompt to delete it. Do you want to delete? Yes, delete. And now we're going to sign out of Dropbox. And it completed the test. Okay, so the test ran successfully. If we look here at the test results, it details all the different steps that were taken in here, the validation that was successful. We could have probably done a few more things. We could have added some snapshots, for example, where you capture a screenshot of, let's say, maybe of the host screen itself, or where we did the validation step. So you could put different screenshots in there as well. We could have broken this out into different modules. Right now it's all under one recording module. With best practices, we could have, one of the best practices is breaking it into smaller pieces so that you could reuse them. Maybe the login portion being one recording module, and then maybe each screen, depending, because maybe in this particular test we want to do different things. We want to first of all do an upload and a delete, and maybe we want to add a text file, maybe we want to create a folder or something like that. So there's a number of different things for this, where you can diversify. And so having different test modules would allow you to break it up, different recording. And we can easily break this up into different modules, just like you would on the desktop or a browser. Move different things to our new recording module. So it would make probably sense to break some of these that are where we're using these what do you call it, these separators. Those would be maybe some reasonable logical points for those. But we're running out of time, and so this really concludes the demo for this mobile app testing. And just know that we do have webinars each month, and we hope that you attend the future ones. Now let's move on to the Q&A session.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for your time today. I wanted to go ahead and take the opportunity to share a little bit more about some of the details from the Q&A screen. I'm going to go ahead and get this screen share with you. Give me just a second. All right. So we had quite a few questions today, so I really appreciate the questions, love the interaction. We've had the opportunity to answer a lot of these as we've been able to go along through the recording. One of the first ones, and one of the most popular questions that we had today was, how do we get the screen on the screen of our mobile device into our desktop so we can kind of see it while we're interacting with the mobile device. What Tim was showing today is a part of Android Studio, and so Android Studio is basically how you create applications for Android, and this is provided by Google. We can provide a link for this as well. I don't know if someone is able to drop that into the chat for us today so that everybody can grab that. But it's provided by Google for free, and you can download it and have an emulated version of an Android device on your desktop, just like Tim showed today. For iOS, there is no iOS simulator that is promoted by Apple, but what we can do in those situations, if you have a physical iOS device, you can mirror it through AirPlay through an application called Reflector, or through one of many other applications, but those are the most common questions that we see in regards to being able to view or emulate a screen on your desktop. And that's really great for presentation purposes like this, especially with distributed teams. Some of the other questions that we've had, I've also seen folks asking about the instrumentation process itself. And I just wanted to reiterate what Tim said earlier. Everything in the every application that you want to test needs to be instrumented rather in Ranorex Studio. And this is because the Ranorex service application on the device itself will use the instrumented application as a translation layer so that it can convert what we type out or what we create in Ranorex Studio to an action that the application can understand. So that translation layer is super, super important, and it's a requirement in order to get everything up and running on your device. And if you guys have any trouble with that process, we have some documentation in the user guide on our website, and you can also reach out to the support team at any time and be more than happy to help. Another common question that we get, for example, we have both web-based tests on our mobile devices, and we have native apps. So what we saw today from Tim was a native application, and for the most part, that will run exactly as you saw here. For web-based testing, you have a few options. If you want to see it on the actual device itself, we can use the Ranorex web browser. And this is because Google and Apple don't allow us to instrument their first-party applications. So we created a third-party application to handle that for you. And so you can use the Ranorex browser. It's available for free for download on the website. And you can actually run through and test your applications, your web-based applications on mobile devices that way. Additionally, it may even be possible to test those on your computer without using a mobile device. A lot of web-based applications, and yours may be one of these, you can actually adjust the resolution of your screen, of your web browser, to mimic the size of the mobile device that you want to test. So some people will do that because it's a little bit easier, and then you can set an endpoint for a mobile device, and it will run through that test in the same way that it would on the desktop. But that's going to depend on your application. But one other thing that I just wanted to point out. So I know that we're closing up on the top of the hour, and we still have a few questions out there. We're going to get to those immediately after this presentation. As a reminder, the presentation will be uploaded, and it has been recorded, so you'll receive an email after that point, and it should have a copy of this recording. I want to thank everyone for their time today. I want to thank Tim for presenting. I want to thank John for moderating, and Jackie and everyone on the team here for putting this together. And we really appreciate everyone's hard work behind the scenes. We've got Jason back there answering questions, and it's been a great opportunity today to learn more about Ranorex and how it interacts with mobile devices. If you still have any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to help. I hope that you all have a great day. Stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.